What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at 11 top teams for the Fantasy Cup. Now, if you don't know, the Fantasy Cup only allows Pokemon that are Dragon, Steel, and Fairy. So you already know that the Steels are going to dominate just purely off of typing alone. But then you also have a lot of sub-typings that pop up, like Fire, which are really strong. So let's quickly take a look at the top 20 rankings according to PvPoke, and then we'll look at the 11 top teams. At the number 1 spot, we have Galarian Stunfisk, followed by Galarian Weezing, and then Corviknight, Turtonator, Dedenne, Empoleon, Steelix, Alolan Dugtrio, Excadrill, Fortress, Jirachi, Sandslash, Aegislash, and Registeel. So without further ado, let's hop into the 11 top teams. Team number 1, we've got Azumarill, Shadow Excadrill, and Shadow Alolan Dugtrio. Now, if you weren't aware, and when you were looking at the top 20 ranked Pokemon, almost all of them are weak to ground. So having Shadow Mudslappers absolutely dominates this cup. Yes, they too are weak to Mudslap, which can make, honestly, this cup a whole lot of fun because they're just very hard hitting and everything dies in like 3 mud slaps if you got Shadow on Shadow. But this is an ABB style team. You've got Excadrill as the safe swap. It's got that Rock Slide coverage in case you get locked on to something like a Corviknight. And then you've got the Shadow Alolan Dugtrio in the back, which has coverage into your fairies as well with Iron Head. But overall, a very strong team. You see all of their wins are hard wins, and then most of their losses are hard losses, and that's just kind of the feast or famine style of this team. Up next, we've got Shadow Empoleon, Shadow Salamence, and Altaria. So this is also an ABB style team. You got 2 Dragon Flyers in the back. You need to run the Shadow Empoleon for this team specifically because you're very weak to Dedenne otherwise. Fortunately, Empoleon wins CMP against Dedenne 99% of the time. So as long as your IVs don't end up kicking you in the butt, you will win CMP. Hydro Cannon, it paces the exact same as the Parabolic Charge, which means in the even energy, even shield situation, Empoleon will take it in the 2 shield scenario. You also can soft lose it in the 0s and 1s, but that's when you just come in and you clean up with Shadow Salamence, which is your safe swap. Honestly, either could work as a safe swap. Shadow Salamence, the recommended moveset on PvPoke is Dragon Tail, Fly, and Brutal Swing. Do not, by any circumstances, use Dragon Tail. Please use Fire Fang. Shadow Salamence with Fire Fang, Fly, and Brutal Swing has an incredible record in this cup. So definitely use Fire Fang. There's virtually no reason to use Dragon Tail. The moveset on Altaria, though, is fine. Next up, we've got Corviknight, Shadow Flygon, and Turtonator. So when you think about what Corviknight's weaknesses are, you're going to notice almost all of these teams are ABB style, and that's kind of how it works in limited cups. But with Corviknight's weaknesses, you've only got Fire and Electric. So you want to cover those weaknesses with 2 dragons at the back, which resist both, and then Flygon has coverage into both Fire and Electric because it's running Sand Attack and Sand Tomb in this cup. It is ranked all the way down at 82, but Flygon always pops up in this meta because it's an interesting core breaker. That typing plus the ground coverage, while not being weak to ground itself, makes it very strong. It is a very glassy Pokemon, and in the past it's caused things like Shiinotic and Whimsicott to pop up, but we'll see how dominant it is this go around. The next team we're going to take a look at is Galarian Stunfisk, Togekiss, and Tapu Fini. Once again, another ABB style team. You've got 2 fairies in the back, which are good into your ground, which Stunfisk kind of struggles with. Stunfisk is the number 1 ranked Pokemon for a reason, though. It beats a lot of the top meta, and even the fire types that it's weak to, it can beat. When you think about like Turtonator, you're still hitting for super effective damage with Mud Shot, Rock Slide, and Earthquake, and you do, of course, pace a little bit slower to the Rock Slide than in previous seasons, but Rock Slide did get a little buff this season, and now it does hit a little bit harder. And you've got that bait, and then you've got Earthquake for your other steals. You resist Air Cutter, on the Corviknight, where you have neutral rock slides for. So overall, it's a very strong Pokemon. Cover your ground weakness with Togekiss and Tapu Fini. Both fairies also cover your fighting weakness on the lead. Tapu Fini also covers your fire weakness. Togekiss is pretty neutral. You've got Psyshock and Aura Sphere for coverage into your weaknesses. So in case you see a poison, you have Psyshocks. You see a steel, you have Aura Spheres. Very solid safe swap there. The next team we're going to take a look at is another team with Shadow Flygon, but the main focus of this team is both Shadow Galarian, Weezing, and Fortress. This is kind of an ABC style team, but it plays like an ABB because you have two Pokemon that are pretty much weak to ground in the back, right? Shadow Galarian, Weezing, weak to ground, weak to the Mud Slaps. Fortress absolutely does not want to see a ground because it's on Volt Switch in this cup. And the reason it's on Volt Switch is because you have things like Corviknight and Azumarill, which are all weak to that electric typing. If you lure out something like an Excadrill with your Weezing, maybe you can get to an Overheat and at least grab a shield and then punish it with the Flygon. And then you have Fortress, which roams free in the back. Overall, an interesting team, but just some caveats to keep aware of. The next team we're going to take a look at is Florges, Turtonator, and Steelix. This is once again another ABC style team-ish, but you have an ABB weakness in ground, so that is why your safe swap is Turtonator here. If you bait out one of those Mud Slappers, you have super effective Incinerates and Overheats for those Mud Slappers. And then Steelix in the back can roam free. Absolutely doesn't want to see it as a Thunderfang user and weak to ground. Wants to avoid those Mud Slappers at all costs. But then you have Florges on the lead, which covers most of Steelix's weaknesses. You've got the fighting coverage as a fairy. It's got chilling water for the fire weakness in the back as well, and your grounds, which are weak to. So overall, very solid team there. Florges plays a pretty similar role as something like a Tapu Fini or a Azumarill in this cup. The next team we're going to take a look at is Ferrothorn, Shadow Galarian, Weezing, and Dedenne. The Ferrothorn Dedenne core is pretty solid. Obviously, Dedenne is weak to poison and ground. So as a steel grass, you neutralize the ground coverage, but you have neutral Bullet Seeds and Power Whip into the ground steels, and neutral Bullet Seed and Power Whip into the ground dragons, such as Flygon, because, you know, grass super effective into the ground, but resisted on the others. And then obviously you resist the poison weakness of Dedenne because you double resist poison as a steel on Ferrothorn, and takes super effective on the grass, so a net single resistance. Weezing is your safe swap, meant to lure out those grounds once again, which you have the overheat coverage for. The next thing we're going to take a look at, kind of going a little bit off script here, we've got Empoleon, Appleton, and Shiinotic. Now this is definitely an off-meta team if I've ever seen one, and the reason I put this team together is purely to counter the Azu double Mud Slap line, which you're likely to see in this cup quite a bit. So you've got Empoleon on the lead, which just completely shuts down Azumarill, and then you've got two Astonish grass type Pokemon in the back which resist the Mud Slaps, which is really important. Appleton is honestly pretty bulky, same with Shiinotic. They've got some decent stats, and they also cover your leads weaknesses really well, right? Empoleon is weak to fighting, electric, and ground. Look at Shiinotic. As a fairy grass, you resist fighting, electric, and ground. So really great core there. Appleton only it double resists electric, and it resists ground, but it doesn't resist the fighting, which is why it's going to be your safe swap instead. And not a lot of people are going to be prepared for something with Seed Bomb Outrage coverage. So just something to consider, and kind of a fun off-meta team, which you might have to run just to kind of shut down those hardcore meta lines later on. The next team we're going to take a look at is quite obviously an ABB style team. We've got Shadow Magnezone, Latias, and Latios. On your lead, you're weak to fighting, and you're weak to fire. Of course, you're weak to ground as well, but fighting and fire are both covered by Latias and Latios as Dragon Psychics. And they have very interesting coverage for this meta. Latias is actually opting for Thunder in this meta, which I found interesting, which is why it's the safe swap for this team. Because anything that doesn't want to face an electric might safe swap, or might swap into your Latias, expecting that they won't be aligned against the electric, and then you have that electric coverage. And then Latios runs free in the back with Aura Sphere and Luster Purge. The next team we're going to take a look at is Escavalier, Turtonator, and Azumarill. So the main focus of this team is, of course, Escavalier, and Escavalier did, of course, get nerfed with the counter nerf a few seasons ago. However, it actually still looks okay in this meta. It used to be a meta staple for this cup, but of course it has fallen off. It does now have access to Razor Shell, which does give it a nice bait move, but Counter and Drill Run are pretty interesting for this cup, and only one weakness, which is a double weakness to fire, makes this thing really, really strong. So just cover your fire weakness with 2 Pokemon that resist fire in the back. You've got Turtonator, which double resist fire, and then Azumarill, which single resist fire in the back. Next up, the team we're going to take a look at is Shadow Mawile, Tapu Fini, and Altaria. This is the final team we're going to take a look at. And the main focus of this team is, of course, Shadow Mawile. So Shadow Mawile does have access to Fire Fang. It does also have access to Power Up Punch, Play Rough, and I believe it's Iron Head. I would recommend Iron Head over Play Rough. Just because it gives you a slightly better average in this cup. That said, you're not weak to water, but your fire fangs are resisted by water, so you cover your water weakness with Altaria, cover your ground weakness with both Tapu Fini and Altaria. You're not really weak to fighting, so that's okay there, but overall you're a steel, so just cover those like fire and ground weaknesses with Altaria and Tapu Fini. And you've got a pretty solid ABC style line with a pretty good core breaker, which beats a lot of the not top meta, but everything else pretty much it beats. So, but yeah, that's going to be 11 top teams for the Fantasy Cup. Before I wrap up this video, I want to say a thank you to the expert trainer members on this channel: Benny Hemlock, Dr. Mustache, Sohan Patil, Eliana, Perry G, and Blue Nation, as well as an extra special thank you to the legend trainer members on this channel: Andrew Pitten, Musachu, Noodleman, Speedster, Esteros, Fast City Boss, CD Slaskus, and Castle. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace!